Hey, 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 everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Sanity Success Podcast. You can find this across all streaming platforms, but you can also visit sanityandsuccess.com for the latest and greatest episodes and to find a link directly to your favorite streaming app. So, today we're going to be talking about a conversation that I've been having quite a lot. And a lot of my podcast episodes are often sparked by the conversations that I'm having with friends, with family, with you guys in the Instagram DMs, just kind of like the general tone that I am seeing or hearing about on social media. So today I really wanted to talk about why a lot of us are afraid to pivot, but also talk about what it means to feel out of alignment and how to get into alignment when you don't know exactly where you're going. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this was because I have been in such an uncomfortable space for the last year. And I'm finally getting to a place where I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Like I'm perfectly aligned. Like everything is finally working out in my favor. But not everything is perfect, right? So I still have some issues that are brewing in the background, things that are, in the back of my mind, some things that just haven't been resolved. But I also am sitting from a different vantage point than I was a year ago. And when I talk to a lot of you guys, one of the things you say is, I know that I'm supposed to be somewhere else. I'm uncomfortable with where I am. I'm supposed to pivot and be doing something differently, but I just don't know what that different is. I know that I'm supposed to be somewhere else that's not here. And I wanted to share with you the three things that were kind of signs for me to show me that one, I was afraid to pivot, but also what I needed to be doing about them. Right. And once I outlined this episode, I realized that the timing was so perfect because I had actually done some version of this episode a couple of months ago on the topic of alignment. And my microphone didn't work. Half of it was recorded, corrupted. Editing it was a nightmare. It was just like a 30-minute podcast that turned into hours and hours of work. And unlike Money Long, I cannot do this for hours. Okay. I cannot sit here and talk to you for hours. All right. So I was like, okay, F it. I'm just gonna trash it and I'm gonna try again. And a week ago, I was writing in my journal and I realized that the reason why I had to record this podcast episode now is because I'm in just such a different space than I was even just 2 months ago. And when I did the journal prompt inside of the Sanity and Success journal, the question was, let me remember exactly what it is. Oh, it was, what have you accomplished in the last 12 months that you are proud of? And as I started to write things down, and just go through my to-do list. Oh, I got the event space, I moved, I did this, I did that. I realized, like, wow, so many of the things that I had on my goal list, so many of the things that I had been working so hard for and towards a lot of my adult life were finally coming true. And I was really sitting, or I should say, I really am sitting in an answered prayer. But the problem was that even though I'm sitting in an answered prayer, all of the things that are in the back of my mind that aren't going right, that are off course for me, or deviate from the master plan that I had for my life, started to overshadow all of the good things, right? Started to darken all of the light that was in my life. So the episode that I'm recording for you guys today is from a totally different vantage point, and really something that I hope helps you guys figure out how you can get out from that uncomfortable space, to get out from that life that just doesn't fit quite right anymore, and be confident in walking into whatever the new life that God or your source has for you. So the three ways to know that you're afraid to pivot and what to do about it is the official title of this podcast episode, but we're going to talk about a lot of things within it. And the first thing that we need to know, acknowledge, and understand is that the reason that you're afraid to pivot, the number one reason that you are afraid to pivot, that you are shooketh, okay, that you're like, listen, I want to do something else, but I don't know. So every day I'm going to do the same thing and hope that I get different results, right? The reason that you're going insane is because you are stuck in grief. And I know you're probably like, girl, nobody died. It's never that serious. Like, I'm fine. I'm not grieving anything. But what we fail to realize is that grief isn't just about losing someone. Grief is just the response that we have to any kind of loss. And when you decide that you want to change your life, when you decide that you want something different, when you decide that the current life that you built for yourself is no longer enough and that you want more, you have to acknowledge that you are grieving the loss of your identity, the loss of your security, the loss of everything that at one point for you was true. Everything that's going on in your life right now is a direct result of all of the choices that you've made up until this day. So when you decide, I'm not really feeling this life, you have to also acknowledge, damn, like what I was doing before is what got me up until this point. And I'm kind of a little mad at myself about it, or I'm kind of disappointed, or it's used to serve me, but it doesn't serve me anymore. Right. So we are grieving the life that we imagined and not acknowledging the life that this whole time we've been co creating, right? We've been developing, we've had a direct say in how it's been going. So unless you are a participant in the Squid Games, unless you are a slave, unless you are a hostage, 90% of your life is your responsibility, right? Yes, there are lots of circumstances that can impact that, but a lot of what we're living is our choices, right? And when we start to understand that we are grieving, and we start to understand that we need to move through the grief process in order to move on, we then allow ourselves to feel some of those feelings that we've been refusing to acknowledge were even there in the first place. And for me, I realized I was literally moving through the stages of grief because in a couple of days, it will actually be a year since my grandmother passed away and since I was diagnosed with depression. And when I think about the 12 months of amazingness, right, that have happened in my life, I also think about and understand that my grandmother passing away was a huge catalyst for that because I now knew very intimately that life was short. You know, we say it all the time, life is short. I used to always say life can't wait. You know, being in the pandemic really was a kick in the butt for me to switch things up, but also really understanding that there is someone that used to be on this earth, somebody that I could get on a plane and go see, and that is no longer available to me. It becomes a lot more real, how short life is and how much time we think that we have to do and accomplish and create the life that we want instead of just doing it right now. So as I have been moving through my grief because of the loss of my grandmother, I've also had to move through grief because I had to shed the entire idea that I had about myself, what I thought I would be doing at 31, what I thought my life was going to look like, what I thought my bank account was going to look like, what I thought success was going to be. It's none of that. Okay. It is none of that. And for a long time, I had holding on to the idea of what I wanted my life to be that I never was able to heal and process and just move on from the fact that it's not that, right? And when you think about the stages of grief, you can see how you move through them, or where you might be stuck depending on life. So for me, for example, I really struggles with my business not being where I wanted it to be. No, noted and granted that I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always thought that I was going to have a corner office and be this high powered executive like Bozoma St. John, and that I was going to be this amazing CMO and work for these huge companies. That was always my dream. So then when I became an entrepreneur, things kind of shifted for me and I started to look at success a little bit differently. Um, but when that success that I imagined for myself as a high powered executive didn't mirror the success that I was getting as an entrepreneur, I started to struggle and I started to feel uncomfortable, right? And I started to feel like it wasn't worth it. Like I wasn't worth it. Like I wasn't valuable because the work that I was doing every single day and I was putting in behind the scenes wasn't being celebrated in the traditional corporate structure. In entrepreneurship, there are no promotions. In entrepreneurship, there are no raises. There are no bonuses. It's just the money that you make, the money that you pay your employees, the paycheck that you pay yourself. You might get some Instagram followers, you might get some testimonials, but really that structure and that positive affirmation, right? That positive reinforcement that you get from being in a structured environment like corporate America doesn't exist as an entrepreneur. And it was something that I really, really struggled with. Then once I became an adult, moved to Atlanta, and now moved to Dallas, baby, the dating. Wow. I thought by 31, I would already have toddlers in school. I would have a huge house with a white picket fence, a husband, a maid, a chef, a housekeeper, a nanny. I mean, I thought I was going to be living life. I don't have none of that. I'm working on it. I have checked some of those boxes, but definitely not living that stay at home mom, white picket fence, high powered employee situation that I wanted to create for myself. Again, is it the end of the world? No. But when I kept comparing my current life to the life that I thought that I wanted, my current life always fell short. My current life always felt like it wasn't enough because I was always comparing it to what I thought my life was going to be, what I thought I was going to be doing at this age, what I thought I was going to be accomplishing at this point in my life. So I want to walk you through those 5 stages of grief so that you can kind of think about what that looks like for you. So the first stage of grief is denial. Wow. The denial of our current reality is probably one of the biggest reasons why we don't make a change, because we don't even accept that we are where we are, right? We just feel like where we are is this pit stop, and not understanding that where we are is truly the reality of where we are. The past cannot be changed and the future cannot be predicted. So often we sit in this denial and we don't take things as seriously, um, or our desire to want something different seriously, because we just assume like, oh, this will pass. Oh, you'll be fine. Oh, it'll be okay. Every time you express your dissatisfaction, you're met with everybody around you telling you how it's okay, telling you how it's not that serious, telling you how, they've been through it too, how it's all right, how that's just life. And then you wonder why you're around a whole bunch of people who have settled, and then why you're settling, right? So the first step is always denial, not even coming to terms with where you actually are and not taking the discomfort in where you are seriously enough. Then there's anger, being angry at yourself, being angry at other people, being angry at your job, being angry at your boss, being angry at your customers, being angry at the Instagram algorithm. You mad at the person at the post office. You mad at everybody because you feel like you have lost control. For me, I spent a lot of time being mad at myself for all the things that I didn't do. Oh, Emily, if you would have just done this, if you would have just done that, if you would have just said yes to this, if you would have just done this other thing. If you would have stayed in Atlanta, if you would have stayed in New York, if you would have stayed with that boyfriend, if you would have stayed at that job, you would be here. You would have this, you would have that. But the fact is, I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if me making different choices or staying in certain situations or certain places was going to get me the life that I wanted. Um, but beating myself up about it was definitely not the answer. So I spent a lot of time being mad at myself for changing my mind, being mad at myself and feeling like I'm so fickle, right? Because I had the audacity to want something different. And when we're beating ourselves up about changing our minds, we don't feel safe to change it, right? When we decide that we want something different, and then we spend all of our mental energy talking down to ourselves for doing so, we now feel hostage in our life because we're not going to want to change things anymore or any further or in the future because of the way that we have responded in this situation, right? So think about where you are angry with yourself. What do you keep telling yourself that you shoulda, coulda, woulda done? What do you think would have been different if you would have just done this? Right. And you can start to uncover some of the resentment that you feel for yourself. The next thing is bargaining. The next stage of grief is bargaining. And that's when you try to regain control and make sense of things. So you start to say, I should have done XYZ. Maybe I should go back. You just renege, right? You consider all of the things that you should have done to change the outcome of where you are, all of the things that should have been different to change the circumstances that you are currently living. After that, the next stage is depression, where you're just hopeless and lost. You don't want to do anything. You don't want to talk to nobody. You're going to go and, go on a hiatus. You cutting everybody off. You're not texting nobody back. You're not going out with your friends. You're just in the dark because the weight and the pressure of understanding the reality of where you are has become too much. And for me, this is exactly where I was a year ago, right? I had been in denial for almost 3 decades. Then I was pissed off at myself for being where I was after 3 decades. And then I wanted to think about all of the things that I should have done, all of the things that I should have changed, everything about me that was wrong, and the reason why I'm not a millionaire with 5 kids in the suburbs. So, of course, I got depressed, right? I started to feel like I didn't have control over my life. I started to feel like there was no way that things were going to look up for me, no way that things were going to change. I was going to be an old lady and die alone with not cats, but some type of pet, right? And just try to figure out how my business and how the amount of money that I was making could fulfill all of the other voids that existed in my life. After depression, right? After we go through that dark stage, then at some point, prayerfully, you get to the point of acceptance. And acceptance is where I am today. And I think again why this podcast episode came at such a timely time. Because uh, after going through so many of the stages of grief in what felt like a lifetime, but also felt like a week at the same time, I finally started to understand that I am grateful for where I am, how all of the little pieces have fallen together exactly how they needed to, how I'm sitting in a lot of God's grace, how I'm sitting in a lot of God's mercy, how I'm sitting in a lot of God's promises fulfilled, and understanding what surrender truly means. And I did an episode on surrender as well that you can listen to, which is episode, I'm looking up here, mm, episode 11. So on episode 11, I talk more about surrender, but I feel like now I truly, truly understand what surrender means because 9 months ago, when I was understanding surrender and then where I am now living in surrender are two totally different things. So definitely go back and check out that episode so you can kind of get a understanding of what surrendering means, and also kind of understand how you can start to apply that in your life. But now that I'm in a place of acceptance, nothing really bothers me. I mean, I get sad, I get angry, but nothing really puts me in a hole and makes me feel like I'm stuck. I don't feel like I'm hostage in my life anymore. I just feel like I'm going to get to my destination one way or another. And the pity party that you are throwing yourself, the pity party that I was throwing myself, has to go in order for us to move past grief, in order for us to pivot, in order for us to change, in order for things to be differently. We have to identify and acknowledge what we're actually grieving and understand that the past is long gone and the future is unpredictable. And all we have is today. And when we look at what is true today, when we look at what do we have to show for our life and all of the options that we have to rejigger, to redesign, and to reconstruct our lives, then the game changes because we stop being um prisoners in our lives and we start being players, right? We start to learn how to play the game instead of feeling like the game is playing us. So, moving through grief and understanding that you're stuck in grief is one of the main reasons why we're afraid to pivot or just why we don't pivot. The next is you haven't decided, so you feel stuck. You haven't made the decision. You haven't designed your life. Your vision board is collecting dust, or you haven't even made one. You don't even know what it is that you want. So moving is impossible because you don't know where you're going, right? You haven't figured out what your life looks like. You haven't figured out what is your new normal. And it ties back to that grief, right? To that being in denial. You can't start to think about and construct what your new normal is going to look like if you're still stuck crying about what you thought your life was going to be. You can't do both. You can't live in the past and actively plan out or design what you want the future to be. So when you think about getting unstuck or pivoting or finding alignment, however you want to describe it, you first need to decide what it is that you want. But here is the T. Here's the T. We don't decide because we lack main character energy. And I'm telling you, as a recovering supporting character in my own life, main character energy is super, super duper important. And we all know main characters in our lives, right? And we know those people that are just so unapologetic, that are just living their life on purpose, that they don't give a F about what anybody else is doing or what anybody else says. They're living their life on their own terms. And the difference, in my opinion, from of those people from us, or from those of us who lack main character energy, is that they are willing to be selfish. They're willing to be selfish. The main character is the central character in the story. The story revolves around them. The plot revolves around them. It's about them. The world revolves around them. But as women, as people of color, for so freaking long, we have been told that the world does not revolve around us, that we are not important, that we don't matter, that we don't have a say, that we start to internalize those things and apply that to our own life. So because we don't have a say in what our job looks like, because we don't have a say about politics, because we don't have a say about racism, because we don't have a say about the pay gap, because we don't have a say about so much bullshit that's going on in the world, that starts to become ingrained in us and it starts to trickle into how we act in our day-to-day lives. And when we decide to step into that main character energy, it feels a little, how can I say, it feels a little slimy. It feels a little entitled. It feels a little, ooh, I'm a bitch. I'm a bad mother. I'm a bad friend. I'm a bad daughter. I'm a bad employee. Ooh, I'm not doing it the way that I'm supposed to do it, right? We start to make our family, our mom, our coworkers, our boss, our clients, our kids, our husbands, whoever, the main characters of our story. And we're just left to the side being an extra in our own damn movie. And I want to be really, really clear and really, really honest with you all. People pleasing is the real pandemic. People pleasing is the real pandemic. We're sick. We are sick. All of us are miserable, not living the lives that we want, wondering why we feel hostage, wondering why we wake up every day unfulfilled. And it's because we have put other people's pleasure and other people's desire above our own, because we think that that's what's going to make us a good person, because we think that's what's going to make us a good partner, a good wife, a good mom, whatever label you want to put on it. So while we might have our own needs and desires, we put those things to the side because we say, you know what, this other thing's need or desire is bigger and more important than my own. Is that true? Absolutely not. But that's how we've been raised to think, right? That's what we've been bred to believe, that being a good person means you sacrifice and you give up what you want. You accomplish things at the expense of what you want because your job is to please other people. And when you look at your life, if you design your whole entire life around other people, that is a problem. That is a problem. Why? Because when we don't decide and design the life that we want based on what we desire and what we need, we rob ourselves of the opportunity to live the life that we deserve, because we're letting other people dictate for us. I'm gonna just let that marinate. We rob ourselves of the ability to live the life that we deserve because we don't want to decide or design on the life that we want based on what we desire and what we need. We let others dictate for us. And we start to think that designing our ideal life means that we automatically lack consideration for others, that we automatically are selfish, that we automatically are arrogant or entitled. But you can absolutely design a life that you want that still takes into consideration other people. But just because you're considering other people doesn't mean that you prioritize other people or that you devalue yourself. You always keep yourself number one, but you also look at all of the other people and all of the other things on your list that are going to be taken into account when you make certain decisions. But when you leave yourself off of the list, when you don't even put yourself at the top of the priority list when you're making decisions and you're making everything about everybody else, of course you're miserable because it's not aligned or tied to what it is that you really want. So in episode 4, I actually walk you through how to design your day. It was called Planning for the New Year. And every day your new year could start. Your new year doesn't have to start on January 1st. It could start on October 1st. It could start on June 6th. Any day could be a new year for you. So all you have to do is sit down and make a list of what you want your life to feel like, not what you want your life to look like, because obviously, yes, we want to wake up at this time and we want to do this, but what do you want your life to feel like? Do you want your life to feel easy? Do you want your life to feel joyful? Do you want your life to feel exhilarating? Whatever that is. Episode 4 will walk you through how to do that. But once you decide what it is that you want your life to feel like and what it is that you desire, you can also start to create what I call your non-negotiables. And your non-negotiables are not hard rules, right? But they are the parameters for which you make decisions. So for me, a non negotiable is flexibility. Any situation, job, relationship, business model, anything that I do has to be from a flexible place. I hate feeling like I cannot control my time, like I don't have a say, like I am just stuck, right? So as I start to look at different situations in my life, I don't throw them away, but I look at, does this situation, person, or thing allow me to be flexible? I'll give you an example. I can have a job and understand that, yes, I'm going to have to work from the hours of 9 to 5. However, how can I find flexibility or find the most flexible option within the structure of a job? I can work full time remote. Why? I don't have to be at the office at a certain time. Whenever I have meetings, I can take meetings from wherever I am. I can run errands in the day if I need to. I can, step away from the computer to do something. So, yeah, even though a 9 to 5 isn't considered flexible, I can still find situations that make that job flexible, right? I can decide within my relationship what flexibility looks like. Maybe I don't want to be up under somebody every single day. So maybe I'm in a long distance relationship and I see that person on the weekends. Or if the person lives in my city, maybe instead of them coming over 5 nights a week, they only come over 2 nights a week because I need space to move around, to do other things, to see friends, to work, whatever it is. So again, it's not saying, oh, I don't have time for relationships, or oh, I will never be flexible with the job. I try to think about, okay, how can I bring in my non-negotiable? How can I find situations, create scenarios where that non-negotiable, that value, that desire can be honored within the container that I'm given. When you think about what your non-negotiables are, you have to believe that what you want is available to you. A lot of times we don't dream big and we don't say what we want out loud because we don't even believe that those things are possible for us. And if you don't believe that what you want and what you desire is something that's possible for you or something that you deserve, you're literally wasting your time. Like you will never ever make any changes because you're always going to look for situations and you'll always make decisions that prove you right. If you think that you're not deserving of a flexible job, you're always going to take jobs that don't provide any flexibility. If you think that being a parent is difficult and it's time consuming and is exhausting, you're going to figure out a way to design your life so that it is difficult and miserable and exhausting, right? So once you start to think about and you start to jot down like, okay, I want this is important to me, this is important to me. Also check to make sure that you don't have any limiting beliefs around those non-negotiables, because you will literally make a list that you just ignore because your beliefs will always be the number one thing that trigger your decision making process. Okay. And I have a whole another episode on that. I feel like this whole episode I've been like, and I got another episode on this. But I also do have an episode on limiting beliefs. I believe that's episode 1 that you can check out as well. So now that we have gotten through the first two of why you're afraid to pivot or reasons why you might not be pivoting, right? So you're stuck in grief, you haven't acknowledged your old life, and the fact that you're losing it. And then you haven't even decided what it is that you want for your new life, so you don't even know where to go. You have to then, number 3, understand the differences between actions and intentions. So actions are things that you do. Intentions are why you do those things. Okay. The reason why I feel in alignment with my life at this point in time, and I didn't feel in alignment for 3 decades, is because at this point, I make sure that all of the actions that I'm taking, all of the things that I'm doing match up with the initial intention I had for putting that action on my to-do list, or for putting that action in motion in my life, right? And when you think about intention, you want to understand that intention is kind of like where you're going, right? Your intention is like the destination, like the final goal. And the action is how you're going to get there. The action is interchangeable. The intention is not. And I'll give you an example. So I've been investing since 2015, maybe. Um, I've taken trading course, like forex trading courses, stock courses, real estate books. I mean, I've done everything because I've just always loved the idea of multiplying money. My intention is to figure out how can I grow my money without doing any additional work. So when I learned how to trade stocks and forex, I was doing an action, I was doing a thing, trading, because of my intention of multiplying money. Over time, I started to become a little bit miserable. Miserable is a dramatic word, but I started to just become a little overwhelmed because trading was very time consuming. I had to read the charts, I had to read the news. I would wake up in the middle of the night for London session. I was running a business, I was working a job, I was just doing a lot of things. And day trading just didn't fit into the grand scheme of things. But I struggled with that for a minute because I was like, well, this is the way that I learned to invest, right? This is the action that matches my intention. I kept taking action, right? I kept doing without understanding or reevaluating the intention behind the action. And once you start to understand the intent that you have for why you're doing something, once you understand and unlock essentially like the purpose of why you're doing something, you can actually figure out if it aligns with what it is that you want. So if I take a look, okay, I'm day trading stocks. I want to make, solid investments. I want to be able to grow my money without having to work for it. I want to be able to set myself up for retirement. I want to do this. I want to do that. Right? Those are my intentions. Is there another way for me to still take action towards that intention that is not day trading? Right? Once I thought about that, once I was looking at my options, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I don't need to day trade stocks. Maybe I can explore other avenues of investing. So I got into real estate. I started holding my stocks instead of day trading them. So I started holding them for a longer period of time instead of trading them every single day. I got an Airbnb. I just started to look at other more passive ways that I could put money in and get more money out. I still stuck to my intention. I didn't abandon or give up on my intention. I just changed the action, right? And when we look at our lives and when we look at wanting to pivot and wanting to shift, we often confuse action and intention. We think, oh, well, if I stop doing this thing, then I'm giving up on the goal. I'm giving up on the destination. If I stop doing X, then that means that I don't want Y. And that's not necessarily the case. Another example I could give you is like with social media. So, y'all know I love talking about social media. But I just have real beef with the business industry. I just really do. And I'm not afraid to say it. And one thing that pisses me off is that people believe I have to go live and post consistently to make money on the internet. That's the action. The action is go live and post consistently. However, when we think about the intention, the reason why we're going live and posting consistently is because we want to get in front of our audience with the consistency, and we want to build a relationship with them with that live component, with that live interaction. However, if I want a life where my non negotiable is flexibility, but every Tuesday, I got to go live because I told some people I got to go live. And now on Tuesday, my friend came in from out of town and wants to go to dinner. I can't go to dinner because I just told some strangers on the internet that I was going to be on live. That's the opposite of flexibility. Now I'm pissed off. Now I'm miserable. Now I resent Instagram. Now I have beef with the algorithm. And now I want to fight. I do. It be that serious, right? So if the action doesn't align with my life or the desire that I have for my life, I think about what other actions can I take with the same intention? All right. If the intention is to get in front of my audience and build a relationship with them, maybe I'll start a podcast so I can still talk to them candidly, right? I can still give them my perspective. I can still give them my thoughts, but it doesn't have to be in a live environment where I am tied to a specific schedule. If I want to get in front of my audience, I'm not going to create content every single day because that just does not rock with me. But I'm going to figure out what are my top 9 pieces of content and I'm going to run ads, right? The intention is the same. I'm still getting in front of my audience. I'm still being consistently in front of my audience, and I'm still building a relationship with them by letting them get to know me. But I'm not doing it how somebody else said that I needed to do it. I'm doing it in a way, I'm taking action in a way that aligns with what I want because I'm the main character. This is my motherfucking show. Okay? Everybody else got to get in line. This is not the circus. Okay? I'm not out here performing for you motherfuckers like monkeys. It's my show. I run the show. I produce the show. So I'm going to tell you how the show going to go. And woo, y'all know I'll be ready to get stuff off my chest. But I just really think that like the coaching and the online education industry has just done so many people a disservice because all of the advice and all the information that we always want robs us of the freedom to choose what it is that we want. Because this person said, do this. This person gave us an action. We feel like we have to do it that way. And then we lose our autonomy. We lose our ability to have a say in how we want to run our businesses, how we want to work our jobs, how we want to raise our kids, how we want to be in relationships, how we want to make money, travel, live our life, because some stranger on the internet told us that that's the way that they did it. But because they did it that way, doesn't mean that I have to do it that way. It doesn't mean that I have to throw away, dispose of, ignore my needs and desires because this person told me about an action that they took that helped them to get to a certain result. I have to look at what is the result and what are all of the options that I have available to me to get to that result. This person is providing me with one perspective, with one action, but that one action is not the only way to do it. We have to be willing to see things differently and to accept the fact that we are the experts in our lives. We lose the autonomy to make decisions in our lives because we always want to hand off the autonomy to somebody else. When we're growing up, our parents tell us what to do. Our teachers tell us what to do. Then we get into jobs, our bosses tell us what to do. Then we get into relationships, our partners are telling us what to do. Then we have kids, our kids are telling us what to do. Then, we go to church, everybody at church is telling us what to do. And it's like, at what point in time do we get to be grown people and say, this is what I want to do? This is how I want to spend my time. This is how I want to make money. This is how I want to run my business. We have to be willing to see things differently. We have to be willing to accept that nobody can tell us better than us how to live our lives and how to do the things that we want to do. You have to decide where it is that you're going and then discover the ways to make it happen. Notice I didn't say decide the way to make it happen. I said decide where you're going and discover how you're going to make it happen. Discover, find out, figure out. You don't always know how things are going to happen, but you know where it is that you want to go. But oftentimes we do it backwards, right? We decide the route that we're going to take and hope that it leads to the destination that we want. We committed to college. So hopefully when we graduate, it's going to make us money. We committed to being in business, so hopefully it'll provide us stability and mental health. I committed to my partner, so hopefully we'll live happily ever after, even though he cheats on me. I committed to having children, so now my whole entire identity as a woman is thrown in the trash because I'm just a mother now. Why? Why is our commitment to one specific action the downfall of everything else that we intended for our lives? Do you get in your car and follow a specific route and hope that you get to your destination? You like, you know what? I'm going to make a left on every second street and hope that I arrive at the destination where I'm going to. Or do you get in your car, you decide your destination, and then you adjust your route based on the circumstances, right? If you're on your way somewhere, you've decided you want to go somewhere. If you're on your way somewhere and you see traffic or an accident, you say, maybe I should get off in this exit and try to find another route. You still have the intention to get to that final destination, but you're not committed to that route. Often we commit to the route so much that we get lost and don't even get to the destination that we originally intended to go, where we originally intended or set out to go. And surrender doesn't mean, oh, when I hit traffic, I'm going to turn the car around and go home. Surrender doesn't mean when things get bad in my relationship, I'm going to get a divorce. When my kids piss me off, I'm going to give them up for adoption. When my job pisses me off, I'm going to quit. When my business pisses me off, I'm going to, quit. But it means I'm willing to see things differently. I'm willing to acknowledge that what I'm currently doing isn't working, but there has to be another way to do this to still get the same outcome. I can still be an excellent mom if I do X. I can still be an excellent partner if I do Y. I can still enjoy my job if I can adjust this. I can still thrive in my business if I adjust that, right? It's not this end all be all beef that we have with things, right? Surrender is about understanding that you're going to get rerouted in life and you don't have any anxiety when you're rerouted because you accept that rerouting is just part of the process of getting to your destination. And when you stop confusing action and intention, when you stop confusing the route with the destination, it becomes a lot more comfortable ride for you because you're not stressed out about how you're going to get there. You just are enjoying the ride and knowing that you're going to get there eventually. It just might not be in the way that you originally planned or the way that you originally intended. And y'all know that I love to like go real deep with my metaphors, and I always have a metaphor for anything. But I really just want you to get this, understand, and to get this point across that you don't have to be tied down to every single action, decision, strategy, system, coach, whatever, that you decided upon. You decide, you take action. You decide, you take action. You decide, you take action. You don't just take action, take action, take action, take action, and forget about deciding whether or not it still fits, whether or not it still aligns. You choose every single day what it is that's happening next. But often we feel like we don't have a choice in what happens next because of a action that we've committed to, or because an action that we've decided to take, or because of something that we said yes to months or years ago, because of a value that was instilled in us months, years, decades ago, right? So as you start to think about pivoting, as you start to think about getting comfortable, as you start to find your place, as you start to figure out what it is that's going to fill you up, I want you to remember that in order to pivot, you have to grieve what you're leaving behind, decide to be the main character, and design a life around your desires every single day, and Ruthlessly evaluate your actions to ensure that they are aligning with the intentions that you had for them in the first place. And if they aren't aligning, be willing to go back to designing and deciding what it is that you want for your life. Be willing to accept the redirection. If you love this episode, please leave me a review, shoot me a comment on Instagram, check out some of the episodes that I'm going to leave down below in the show notes, and I will see you guys on the next one.